What's up, guys? T Money here for another From the Depths of the Bed review for body bags. Feeling kind of lazy tonight, so I've got my kitty in front of me, and I didn't want to leave the bed with her, so we're going to do the review for Asian Week. I guess Asian Week number 1, maybe? I don't know how they're doing this, so week 157 or 150 or 1, I don't know, but it's the first week of reviewing for an Asian film of our choosing. So, the movie that I chose is from 1998, back before there was, what do you call it? Shaun of the Dead and all these other zomcoms. Before zomcoms really were a thing. I mean, of course, there was Return of the Living Dead in the 80s and various zomcoms. I don't know if the term was really coined at that point, but there was, before Shaun of the Dead at least, and before it came like a big cliche thing, there was a movie called Biozombie, which I happen to have right here. Released by Shriek Show, actually. Tokyo Shock, which is a division of Shriek Show, as you well know. From 1998. And this is a zomcom from Hong Kong, directed by Yip Wai-shun, who I don't know if this was the first film that he did, but it was kind of what boosted his career. I think a year later he did another film, I forget what it's called, but that kind of boosted him into a spotlight career. And he worked alongside another famous Asian director who I forget, the name escapes me right now, but this was kind of one of his first movies, I believe. So Biozombie from 1998. This is a Cantonese film. They actually did dub it, so it's English dubbed. I don't think you can watch it any other way, at least on this release. So if you're lazy like me, that's kind of a good thing, because you don't have to read any subtitles. But actually, I would almost rather have this be subtitled just in Cantonese language with English subtitles, because the dubbing is kind of one of the real negative flaws, I'd say, in my opinion. It's just really off. The dubbing is really awkward at times. You know how bad dubbing is, so I don't need to go. I can spare that rant. But yeah, it's kind of awful, the dubbing, and it just kind of slows the quality of the movie down, because it is actually in a lot of ways a really fun movie. If I could describe this movie, I would say it's kind of like Dawn of the Dead meets Mallrats. Slapstick comedy, very cheeky humor, very cheesy, but cool. I mean, totally 90s. It almost has that like Brian Usna feel to it for whatever reason. It's got the, I don't know why it reminds me of a 90s Brian Usna film, but kind of like Return of the Living Dead or something. Return of the Living Dead 3, excuse me. But aside from that, it's totally Asian, and you get a good feel for kind of like Asian culture in this movie. A lot of product placement. The majority of the film takes place in a mall. Basically what happens is there's these two guys, Crazy Bee and Woody, who are kind of like these slacker, kind of like maybe like mid-20s, not punks, but just kind of like jokester, prankster, kind of not losers, but kind of, they don't really have a solid career or anything like that. They work in a mall for a VCD shop. So this is obviously a 90s thing. I'm not sure why it wasn't just a record store, because I think at that point in the late 90s it could have been that, but maybe VCDs were popular in Asia in the late 90s, not sure. But it's a VCD shop that they work in a mall. A small mall too. It's not a very large, like, American-sized mall. It's definitely like kind of like a strip mall, 2 floors, I think. But anyway, so they work in this record store, and they're doing something for their boss, transporting something, and they get tangled up with this government vehicle. I think they get in a car accident or something. They damage their car and by hitting somebody, and so they throw the guy in the car. And there was something kind of going on before that with this chemical agent that they were using. Hi, Pipsina, you don't have to leave, my love. Anyway, so this guy drinks this chemical agent that's in this, they call it in the movie soda, or not soda pop, soft drink. and he turns into a zombies. And so when they carry this guy to the mall, he basically becomes infected and the virus spreads. And I think it also spread kind of outside too, like around the same time. So through that dealing, trying to deal with the whole car issue, picking up this guy who they hit turns into a zombie because he had drank this soft drink that had contaminated zombie juice in it or whatever. And that's how it spread. And so they're basically hauled up in this mall. So there's basically only 5 characters in this film. You've got Crazy B, Woody. Woody's kind of your main guy. Crazy B is like his side wing. They're the 2 basically main characters. And then there's you never see the boss of the record store. They're on the phone with him a lot in the movie, but you never actually see him. So you've got Woody, Crazy B, and then these 2 girls who happen to be in the mall too, that they actually mug in the beginning of the movie, because what they're trying to do is when they get back to the mall, they're trying to come up with money because they damaged their boss's car when they were out on that escapade, and so they're trying to come up with the money to fix it. So they end up mugging these girls, who end up being Jelly and Rolls, 2 hot Asian chicks, who are in this mall, and long story short, the 4 characters basically become trapped in the mall together while the zombie epidemic is going on, and they end up having to fight and work together and escape. And of course, the 2 guys, Woody and Crazy B, have the hots for these, because these are hot Asian chicks, so they're obviously down to defend them and fight this zombie virus with them. So anyway, you've got Woody, Crazy B, Jelly, Rolls, and then you've got these 2 other characters, this Asian guy, Mr. Kiwi, and Mrs. Kiwi. And Mrs. Kiwi doesn't have any other name on screen other than Mrs. Kiwi, which is not really original, but that's aside from the fact it's kind of funny. Adds to the humor of the whole thing. And Mr. Kiwi, I think, owns another store, like a cell phone store, and everything's very dated. The cell phones in this movie are old school as hell, because you can tell it's the late 90s. But yeah, it's not so much like Dawn of the Dead in the sense that it's like a metaphor for consumerism, but it is in the sense that you get a lot of product placement. You get Coke machines, cell phones, VCDs, all kinds of, like, there's a lot of product placement in it, but I'm not really sure what the intention of it is, because I don't think it's a metaphor for something serious like Dawn of the Dead. But all the same, you do get that in this movie. But anyway, so you've got Mr. and Mrs. Kiwi, who work at the cell phone shop down the way, and it's kind of like a relationship like Night of the Living Dead with Tom Towell's character and Tony Todd and Patricia Tallman, where like they're kind of forced to work together, but they don't want to, because Mr. Kiwi is another selfish asshole who basically is just out to defend himself, and can care less about anyone else. But anyway, so long story short, you've got Jelly, Rolls, Woody, Crazy B, Kiwi, Mrs. Kiwi, and the Sushi Boy, and they're basically the characters in this film. All team up in this 2-story mall and try and fight this zombie epidemic. The majority of the film takes place in the mall. At the end, they break out, but it's basically very, very. The movie relies heavily on humor, so a lot of it is in the dialogue, which is funny. I mean, it's really funny. The dubbing, like I said, gets annoying, but it is good dialogue. Like I said, I'd love to watch this movie in Cantonese with English subtitles. I think it would flow a lot better, and you could really get the most out of the dialogue. Because I don't think it's bad. I just think the dubbing is bad. But yeah, so and that's basically your film there. I don't want to go into details about the happenings, but the majority of it is them fighting and trying to get out of this mall that they're trapped in for whatever reason, and escape the zombie apocalypse. And then you've got the Sushi Boy who has a crush on Rolls. Rolls is the beautiful character, I think, and then Jelly is kind of like the sidekick, just like Woody's the main guy and Crazy B's the sidekick. But Woody and Crazy B are a funny duo. They're definitely cool looking guys. I don't know how to really describe them, but they're funny. Good team for sure. Kind of like your leads in Shaun of the Dead, that sort of relationship. One is dumber than the other type thing. But yeah, and they try and escape, and I'll just say that the characters are not they don't place a lot of, how should I say this? The characters are very disposable in this film. They're not very, like, they don't place a lot of, like, you know, it's not like Dawn of the Dead where it's like, oh man, you lose this character who's like epic and you have like strong feelings for him. They're much more disposable and kind of cheaply written in that sense. They don't really dwell, even the characters themselves don't really dwell on the loss of others in the film. I mean, you get a little like flashbacks at the end with Woody. I don't want to spoil anything, but that's just kind of something to take note of. It's not you know, it's not really like a tearjerker at all, or anything heavy. It's very lighthearted stuff. But most of the characters are disposable, we'll say, and they all get their just desserts. We'll say, as far as Q goes, Mrs. Q is a little bit more, you know, you have a little more sympathy for her, but Mr. Q, you just want to fucking die. He's a dick face, a lot like Tom Towles. The name escapes me from Night of the Living Dead, but just a selfish prick, basically. But yeah, I mean, that's basically your film. Biozombie 1998. Your stars, it's from Tokyo Shock, this release. And it's starring Jordan Chan, Sam Lee, Angela Tong, Lei Yi Chung, and Cheng Kang Ching. Script by Yip Hwa Shun, who is also the director. So, I don't know about these actors, what they went on to do, but I would say this this film is, I'd highly recommend. I'll just read the synopsis in the back so you get a kind of a smooth thing. It says, Woody and Crazy B are a pair of average young men working at a CD store. They enjoy scamming customers, playing video games, and chasing the beautiful women who hang out around the mall. On one evening, however, the two hit a pedestrian while out on a joyride and end up with a dead body in their trunk. Unfortunately for B and Woody, this is just the beginning of their trouble. The dead body was once an employee of a mysterious biochemical company, and it is now infected with a strange formula which transforms the hapless mall-goers into an army of blood-hungry zombies. This release is English, Cantonese language dialogue, English subtitles. Oh, so you do have English subtitles. Awesome. So maybe you do have the option, then I have to go back and watch this in Cantonese with English subtitles, because I watched it with the English dub, which I don't recommend. But yeah, I would recommend picking this up, because I don't know if it's ever going to get a Blu-ray release. And I'm not sure where you can get it. I know this is kind of an older, I've had this movie forever, Tokyo Shock release, and I just revisited it because I hadn't seen it since I was in college, like 7 or 8 years ago. So, it runs 90 minutes, it's in color obviously, and it is a horror film from Hong Kong, and I highly recommend it. So that's my first review of an Asian horror film for this Asian-themed section of Body Bags that we're doing. And sorry for the laziness of the video, but winding down here at the end of the day. So thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you next Wednesday. Have a nice one. This is Turi signing out for Body Bags. Peace.